At Washington, the speech by Michael Langley, commander of the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, unexpectedly praised President Traoré and the people of Burkina Faso for their spirit of self-reliance and unwavering determination. President Traoré fell silent as he listened to every word. Michael Langley, a figure once associated with tensions in their bilateral relations, but now, those surprising words of praise left Traoré utterly stunned. Is this a diplomatic charade or a sincere acknowledgement of the relentless efforts of a nation rising powerfully? All of this will usher in a new chapter filled with uncertainty and drama. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. That morning in Ouagadougou began peacefully, like any other day. President Ibrahim Traoré was diligently reviewing local policy documents in his office when the usual rhythm of his workday was interrupted by urgent knocks on the door. Marie, his assistant, rushed in with an expression unlike her usual demeanor, worry clearly etched on her face. "Mr. President," Marie said, her tone filled with urgency, "you need to see this immediately." Traoré looked up, sensing the unusual gravity in her demeanor. He set his pen down and asked, "What's going on?" Without further explanation, Marie handed him her tablet. The screen displayed a live press conference streaming from the United States. On the podium stood General Michael Langley, commander of the U.S. Africa Command. Traoré slightly furrowed his brow. He was accustomed to Western officials frequently mentioning Africa in their speeches. Then, something entirely unexpected happened. General Langley began discussing the emerging role of African nations, and suddenly he directly mentioned Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traoré. The American general's voice resonated, praising the country under the president's leadership as a powerful example of how a small nation can achieve great transformations based on self-reliance and dignity. Traoré felt as if everything around him came to a halt. He was stunned. The fact that his name and his country were publicly praised by a senior military official of a global superpower was beyond anything he could have anticipated. He fixed his eyes on the screen, trying to process the words he had just heard. Was this a straightforward truth, or merely a diplomatic move with hidden intentions? "Mr. President," Marie spoke softly, noticing the evident confusion on his face, "we need to respond." After the surprising moment from General Langley's speech, President Traoré set the tablet down. Self-reliance and dignity. Those words echoed in his mind, not just as praise, but as a profound recognition from an unexpected source. He looked at Marie, his eyes full of contemplation. "This is not an ordinary statement," he said, his voice noticeably deeper. "It carries far more weight than that." Marie nodded, understanding the depth of the president's thoughts. She had been by his side, witnessing his tireless efforts to break the country free from the cycle of dependency. For decades, Burkina Faso had been heavily influenced by foreign aid. Despite numerous funded projects, the results were often unsustainable. Infrastructure deteriorated quickly. Education and healthcare systems remained limited. More importantly, this aid, though well-intentioned, inadvertently undermined the nation's self-reliance and proactive spirit. Traoré believed that excessive dependence on external help had created an invisible crutch, weakening the nation's ability to stand on its own. For this reason, since taking office, Traoré had steadfastly pursued a different path of development. He assembled a team of trusted advisors who shared his vision for a self-reliant Burkina Faso. He spent months meticulously analyzing past failures and searching for a path suited to the country's realities. From this, the idea of a national program focused on harnessing internal strengths and maximizing the potential of its people and local resources took shape. They named this initiative the Sovereign Future Program. Immediately following Langley's speech, Traore convened an urgent internal meeting with key ministers and advisers. The atmosphere in the presidential meeting room was more intense than ever. He recounted General Langley's words and went straight to the core issue. General Langley's words, Traore said, his voice warm yet compelling, are not just praise, they signal that the world is beginning to see us differently. And this is our opportunity to reinforce and affirm the path we have chosen. He went on to elaborate on the philosophy of Burkina Faso for the people of Burkina Faso behind the Sovereign Future program. The reactions from his team varied. Some ministers expressed strong support, their eyes filled with hope for a self-reliant future. They were tired of externally imposed development models. However, skeptical voices emerged as well. Mr. President, the finance minister spoke, his face full of concern. Where will we find the resources? International organizations may reconsider aid if we take this path. Exactly, another advisor chimed in. Do we have the capacity to handle everything on our own? The risk of failure is immense, Mr. President. Traore listened attentively to every opinion. He understood their concerns were valid and had anticipated them. I understand your apprehensions, he said, his gaze resolute. This path will not be easy, and risks are inevitable. But the greatest risk, he emphasized, is accepting help that compromises our dignity, continuing to depend on others, and never truly standing on our own. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the Ouagadougou skyline. I place my full trust in our people. They are this nation's greatest resource. They have the capability, the will, and a deep love for this land. Our task is to provide them with the tools, confidence, and freedom to shape their own future. He turned back to his team. We will show the world that a self-reliant future is not just a distant ideal, but an entirely achievable reality, and we will start by preparing for the upcoming public press conference. Marie felt the powerful energy and determination radiating from Traore. She knew this decision was not impulsive, but the result of a long process of reflection, sacrifice, and struggle. General Langley's words had become a catalyst, propelling Traore's vision forward. Marie immediately began arranging necessary meetings, drafting press releases, and envisioning how they would convey this monumental message to the global public. This would be a defining moment for Burkina Faso's destiny. The next day, a special press conference was convened at the presidential palace in Burkina Faso. The atmosphere was unlike any before. Not only local reporters, but dozens of international journalists from major news agencies had flocked to the event. Cameras and microphones were aimed at the podium, with all eyes eagerly awaiting how President Ibrahim Traoré would respond to the unexpected recognition from General Michael Langley. The story of an American general praising a young African leader had spread rapidly, sparking curiosity and skepticism worldwide. Traoré stepped onto the stage. He did not wear the formal Western suit typical of international events. Instead, he chose a traditional Burkina Faso outfit, colored with the hues of earth and sky, adorned with intricate hand-embroidered patterns. Camera flashes erupted as he approached the podium, his demeanor calm, his gaze resolute. He began his speech with a warm yet firm tone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday we witnessed an unusual event. The room fell silent, waiting. General Michael Langley, representing the U.S. Africa Command, made remarks about our country and about me personally that, frankly, left me speechless. A slight smile crossed his face, easing some of the tension. I didn't expect my name to be mentioned by such an influential figure, especially in such a positive context. However, Traoré quickly shifted the focus. But what truly touched my heart, what made me reflect the most, was not the praise directed at me personally. It was the recognition of the efforts and spirit of the people of Burkina Faso. His voice rang with pride. It is acknowledgement for the farmers sweating on arid land to feed their families, for the teachers striving to bring knowledge to every corner, for the youth yearning to build a better future for themselves and their descendants. He continued, diving into the heart of his vision. For years, Burkina Faso and many other African nations have been viewed through the lens of poverty and dependency. We have been aided, helped, but sometimes that very help has inadvertently stripped us of our autonomy and belief in ourselves. He paused briefly, letting his words sink in. For this reason, I am officially announcing the launch of Burkina Faso's Sovereign Future Program. Reporters began scribbling furiously. This program is not a collection of projects designed from foreign desks. It is an initiative built from our own strength by our own people to address our challenges in our own way. Traore elaborated on the program's philosophy, empowering local communities to devise sustainable solutions to their challenges rather than waiting for external intervention. He stressed that this was the path for Burkina Faso to shape its own destiny, building a future based on mutual respect and belief in its own potential. This program, he affirmed, is not just about policy. It is about proving that we can take care of ourselves. And most importantly, it is about showing the world that Africa does not need to be saved, but respected. As he concluded, a wave of enthusiastic applause erupted from local journalists and some international observers. However, in the front row, a few Western reporters' faces remained skeptical. A French journalist, with a challenging expression, raised her hand. "Mr. President," she asked sharply, "how does Burkina Faso plan to implement these initiatives without significant external financial resources? Isn't that too risky?" Traore smiled lightly. He was prepared for this question. "Everything we do carries risk," he replied, looking directly at the journalist. "But the greatest risk, I repeat, is accepting help that compromises our dignity. We cannot build a sustainable future on the foundation of dependency," he continued, emphasizing each word. "We are betting on the potential of our people, their wisdom, their labor, and their resilience. And I know they will not let us down." His response was immediately amplified on social media. Tweets and posts flooded in with hashtags number Respect for Africa and number Leadership with Dignity, sparking heated debates about sovereignty and sustainable development. Many Africans expressed fervent support, viewing Traore as a symbol of a new generation of leadership. However, there were also dissenting and skeptical voices, particularly from Western analysts, who argued that this was a romantic but unrealistic idea that could push Burkina Faso into a more precarious situation. Half a world away in the United States, General Michael Langley was watching the live broadcast. He sat in his office, the screen's light reflecting on his face. Initially, he felt satisfied seeing his remarks acknowledged, but as Traore responded to the French journalist's question, Langley was struck by the young president's resolve and far-reaching vision. "Interesting," Langley muttered, sipping his coffee. His aide, Colonel Davis, sat across from him. He didn't just respond to the praise, he turned it into a manifesto. "Indeed, sir," Colonel Davis said. "It seems he's using your remarks to bolster his stance on self-reliance." Langley nodded. "Exactly. It shows he's not just a military leader, he's a man with a clear political vision, and the way he emphasized dignity and self-reliance, that's something to take note of." Langley had read numerous intelligence reports about Burkina Faso, its instability, and the people's frustration with external solutions. His speech yesterday was not just a diplomatic gesture, but part of AFRICOM's broader strategy to identify reliable African partners who could stand on their own and address internal challenges. But Traore's response exceeded his expectations. "He's putting us in a position where we have to truly listen, not just speak," Langley said, looking at the screen where Traore's resolute image remained. He's challenging the old model of aid and intervention, and perhaps that's exactly what Africa needs. Langley knew Traoré's declaration would spark intense debate among US policy and military circles. Some would undoubtedly worry about Burkina Faso turning away from the West, but he sensed something fresh and right unfolding in that small nation. Despite potential internal pressures, General Langley understood that this event had opened a new chapter in US-Africa relations, one where respect and mutual understanding would take center stage. President Traoré's press conference statement created a powerful ripple effect. While international opinion continued to debate the feasibility of the Sovereign Future program in Burkina Faso, the government machinery immediately set to work, turning the vision into action. Marie, as the chief coordinator, and her team worked tirelessly. Offices remained lit late into the night, meetings stretched into the early hours, all for a shared goal, proving that self-reliance was not a utopian ideal. The challenges were immense. Burkina Faso was a poor nation with limited infrastructure and a governance system still riddled with weaknesses, but these very constraints fueled creativity and unity. Instead of waiting for external resources, Traoré's government called for contributions from within, the knowledge of local experts, the labor of its people, and even the smallest local resources. In a remote rural area, where the land was arid and life depended on the erratic rainy seasons, Fatou, a young woman with eyes full of constant worry, lived. She was a mother of 3, and providing enough food for her family each day was an unending struggle. Previously, Fatou and her neighbors relied on food distributions from aid organizations or struggled to farm barren land with traditional methods, often facing crop failures. When the Sovereign Future program reached Fatou's village, she, like many others, was initially skeptical. Another new program, she thought. It'll be like the others. But this time things were different. Instead of handouts, the program focused on training and empowerment. Local agricultural officers, sent by the government, held training sessions right in the village. They didn't teach lofty theories, but showed Fatou and other farmers how to improve soil with organic compost from their livestock, build drip irrigation systems using local materials, and select indigenous crops suited to the arid climate. Driven by curiosity and a desire to escape poverty, Fatou attended every session. She learned to read the soil's signs, compost effectively, and set natural insect traps. She spent hours on her small plot, applying each new technique. The first month showed little progress, but then carefully selected seeds began sprouting vigorously. The soil became looser, retaining water better. Fatou noticed her crops growing unusually lush, promising an unprecedented harvest. The first harvest, after adopting the new techniques, transformed her life. Corn and peanuts filled her storage, not only enough to eat, but surplus to sell. For the first time, Fatou had money to buy new clothes for her children and even save a little. Beyond agriculture, Fatou tapped into her innate talent. She had occasionally crafted simple wooden items for her family. The program's encouragement of traditional crafts helped Fatou access advanced woodworking courses led by local artisans. With her skilled hands and creativity, she began crafting intricate tables, chairs, and household items. These products not only met village needs, but were sold at the district market. Soon, Fatou became a respected figure in her community, teaching woodworking to other women, helping them earn income and improve their lives. In another village, Mamadou, an 8-year-old boy with bright eyes, lived a life overshadowed by deprivation. His family was too poor to afford regular schooling. His tattered uniform and lack of books often forced him to work early to help his family. When the Sovereign Future program prioritized reallocating resources and investing in basic education from internal funds, change came to Mamadou's village. A new school, built with local mud bricks and wood, was equipped with desks and blackboards. More importantly, the program provided free uniforms and books for all children, with teachers' salaries secured from community funds. Mamadou was among the first students to benefit. On his first day at school, he wore a crisp new uniform, clutching his textbook tightly to his chest. The feeling of sitting in a classroom, writing on paper, and listening to the teacher was a miracle he had never dared to imagine. He was diligent, always the first to raise his hand, always completing his homework. The dream of becoming an agricultural engineer to help his village began to take root in Mamadou's mind. He was living proof that when given opportunities, human potential flourishes. Marie frequently visited villages, listening directly to the people's feedback. "This is how we build our nation step by step," she often told her team. Every seed planted, every child in school, every product crafted is a testament to our dignity. She understood that it wasn't just numbers on reports, but everyday stories like those of Fatou and Mamadou that were the most compelling evidence of the Sovereign Future program's success. Globally, major news outlets from Reuters, BBC, CNN to Al Jazeera continuously reported and analyzed what was happening in this West African nation. Articles, television segments, and expert commentaries proliferated, each offering a different perspective on the Burkina Faso phenomenon. In the United States, General Michael Langley's remarks and Traoré's response sparked intense debates among political, military, and academic circles. It was no longer just a minor news story about Africa. It had become a litmus test for models of international cooperation and development aid. Some analysts, particularly those with progressive views who had criticized traditional foreign policies, praised Langley for his forward-thinking perspective. They saw his remarks as a positive signal of a shift in Washington's approach to Africa, from a continent needing rescue to an equal partner. In a television interview, a former diplomat stated, "General Langley was bold to acknowledge that sometimes empowering nations to chart their own course is more effective than intervention. Burkina Faso is showing us a new way forward." However, not everyone agreed. Conservative analysts and some hardline lawmakers expressed deep concern. They argued that praising a leader who rose to power through a coup and encouraging nations to pursue self-reliance without close external oversight or financial support was risky. This could lead to instability or, worse, create opportunities for rival powers like Russia or China to gain influence, a prominent political commentator warned on a news program. The debates on air often grew heated, with opposing sides presenting sharp arguments about Africa's future and the West's role. Meanwhile, across the African continent, the response to Ibrahim Traoré and Burkina Faso was a wave of strong support. Traoré's speech, particularly his statement that Africa does not need to be saved but respected, became a viral slogan. Leaders from Senegal, Ghana, to Kenya publicly expressed admiration and interest in the Sovereign Future program. Several countries sent technical delegations to Ouagadougou to learn more about how Burkina Faso was organizing and developing itself. In Nigeria, a group of passionate young intellectuals launched a campaign called Value Your People. They organized workshops, raised community funds, and lobbied their government to focus on locally driven development projects inspired by Burkina Faso. Traoré has shown us what we always knew but forgot, the campaign leader said at a rally. The greatest strength of Africa lies in its people. Meanwhile, the indirect interaction between Traoré and Langley continued to draw attention. In a video interview, General Langley was asked about Traoré's response. "I believe President Traoré delivered a remarkably strong and clear response," Langley said, his expression serious yet amicable. He not only demonstrated leadership, but also a profound vision for his country's future. His emphasis on dignity is a lesson for all of us in international relations. Though spoken with the necessary caution of a military official, Langley's words subtly affirmed that he saw Traore as a potential partner, a leader capable of reshaping the regional landscape. Through Marie's reports, Traore was well aware of the developments in the West. He understood that Langley's words could open opportunities, but also brought new pressures and expectations. He was also conscious of the divided opinions in the US. "They're debating us," he told Marie, "and that's good. It forces them to rethink old prejudices." On social media platforms, the debate was equally lively. Hashtags number respect for Africa and number leadership with dignity trended globally, transcending Africa and the West. People worldwide shared Burkina Faso's story, analyzing the meaning of self-reliance and questioning traditional development models. Online communities formed where activists, young scholars, and ordinary citizens discussed local solutions, the importance of empowering communities and redefining progress. Images of Fatou and Mamadou, widely shared, became vivid symbols of Traoré's message. Traoré knew this moment was a golden opportunity to reposition Burkina Faso's image and, more broadly, Africa's. He turned an unexpected compliment into a declaration of self-reliance, a call for a fairer dialogue between Africa and the world. He didn't seek personal praise, but respect for a continent brimming with potential, where resilient people were writing their own stories every day. Marie, with her energy and dedication, regularly brought Traoré updated reports. These weren't just dry statistics, they were stories of change, of hope, spreading gradually. In agriculture, the results exceeded expectations. Thanks to sustainable farming techniques and community-built irrigation systems, food production in many regions increased significantly. Storehouses were no longer empty, and for the first time in years, people didn't worry about chronic hunger. Marie presented a chart showing a clear decline in child malnutrition rates in pilot regions. "Mr. President," she said, "we are securing our own food security." In education, efforts bore sweet fruit. New schools built with local materials and community labor opened their doors. School attendance skyrocketed, especially among girls, which was previously difficult to achieve. Local teacher training programs ensured enough staff to fill classrooms. Traoré watched a short video of radiant children studying in new schools, and a rare smile crossed his face. "This is the best investment we can make," he said, "investing in the minds of the next generation." In healthcare, small community clinics were established in hundreds of villages. Nurses and health workers, trained from local communities, made healthcare accessible. Disease prevention and hygiene programs significantly reduced common illnesses. Marie shared a story. In a small clinic in Kuka, they helped a woman deliver safely during a stormy night, something unimaginable before. Notably, the Sovereign Future program also encouraged local technology and innovation. Young engineers, supported by community funds, developed compact solar-powered water pumps suited for desert conditions, bringing water to the driest regions. Simple mobile apps were created to help farmers track weather, crop prices, and connect with each other. To witness these changes firsthand, President Traoré made a series of visits to remote villages. He wanted to feel and hear the stories of the people directly benefiting from his policies. On a scorching afternoon, he visited Fatou's village. Fatou stood amid lush green cornfields, thriving remarkably compared to the barren land of before. Seeing the president, Fatou beamed and ran to greet him. "Mr. President, our corn has never been this good," she said, pointing to the sturdy cobs. Traoré listened intently as she described how the new techniques had transformed her life, not only feeding her family, but providing stable income through woodworking. "Before, I only worried about having enough food for my kids," Fatou said, her eyes sparkling. "But now I can support myself and teach other women in the village a trade. We're building a better future together." She proudly showed a small table she crafted, intricately carved with traditional patterns. Traore held the table, feeling the dedication in every detail. He knew it wasn't just a product, it was a symbol of restored dignity. Later, Traore visited the village's new school, where Mamadou was studying. Seeing the president, Mamadou, now in a clean uniform and no longer shy, ran up and tugged at Traore's sleeve. "Mr. President," he said excitedly, "I've learned to read. I want to be an agricultural engineer to help my village grow more crops." He held up a worn primer, its pages tattered from repeated reading. Traore knelt down, ruffled Mamadou's hair. "You're doing great, Mamadou. You are Burkina Faso's future." These authentic moments fueled Traore's resolve. He realized these successes weren't his alone, but belonged to the resilient spirit of the people. Burkina Faso's positive changes weren't only recognized domestically. Initially, international organizations and some foreign governments were skeptical. However, faced with clear evidence of the Sovereign Future Programme's effectiveness, they began to shift their views. A UN delegation visited Burkina Faso, witnessing projects in action and speaking with locals. Their report, though cautious, acknowledged significant progress in community empowerment and sustainable development. In international media, Burkina Faso's story evolved from a controversial topic to a case study. A veteran European journalist, after spending weeks in Burkina Faso, wrote a poignant article titled, "Today in Burkina Faso, I saw the future of an Africa that doesn't need aid, but trust." The article not only detailed economic successes, but delved into the shift in the mindset and spirit of Burkina Faso's people, a revival of self-respect and belief in themselves. The piece went viral, garnering millions of shares and comments, especially on social media. These early successes spread across Burkina Faso, igniting hope in people's hearts. To mark this milestone and honor the people's extraordinary efforts, President Traoré decided to hold a grand celebration. Marie and her team worked tirelessly for weeks to prepare. They wanted it to be more than a formal ceremony, a festival of national pride where every citizen felt part of the success story. Ouagadougou's largest square was chosen, with space for thousands. The stage was adorned with Burkina Faso's flags and large banners proclaiming self-reliance, dignity, our future. Displays showcased successful projects, bountiful fields, new schools, community clinics, and images of people working passionately. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, traditional drums blending with the lively chatter of people from across the country. Before the event, Marie personally invited Fatou and Mamadou, the most vivid symbols of the program's success, to attend and speak. Fatou traveled hundreds of kilometers from her village, carrying not just her story, but her community's hope. She wore a finely embroidered traditional outfit, clutching an old, worn book, a keepsake from her late mother, embodying a simple dream of knowledge. Mamadou, now taller and more confident, walked beside Marie, holding a large board with photos of the program's activities in his village. When President Traoré took the stage, the square erupted in cheers and unending applause. He stood there, his gaze sweeping over the sea of people, feeling their energy and love. He saw Fatou below, her eyes full of admiration. He approached her, extending his hand. "Welcome, Fatou," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are living proof of what we're building, something greater than ourselves." Fatou nodded, tears welling up. "My mother always believed this day would come, Mr. President," she choked out, holding up the book. Inside was a single line. "Knowledge is the greatest legacy we can leave." Traoré smiled, deeply understanding the message. It wasn't just a keepsake. It was a reminder that every small act, every seed of knowledge and kindness could spark great change. In his formal speech, Traoré avoided grandiose or dry political rhetoric. He spoke straight to the people's hearts. "Today," he began, his voice resonating across the square, "we're not here just to celebrate growth figures or policies. We're here to honor the people who built this nation with their hands and minds. You, farmers, teachers, nurses, young engineers, and every citizen of Burkina Faso, you are the true pillars of this country." He paused, then looked directly at the cameras broadcasting worldwide, as if speaking to General Michael Langley. "General Langley," Traore said, "your remarks the other day left me speechless. But I want you to know that those words weren't just for me. They were for all the people of Burkina Faso who fight day and night to build a better future." The square exploded in applause. Behind Traore, a large screen displayed vivid images of projects, thriving fields, children studying in new schools, young scientists with innovative solutions. It was powerful evidence of Burkina Faso's transformation. Next, Fatou was invited to the stage. She hesitated briefly, then took a deep breath, clutching her mother's book. "My mother always taught me to fight for my dreams," Fatou said, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger. "And today, thanks to this innovation center, I know I can fulfill her dream. I want to use what I've learned to help my people grow more food and care for the land better." The square roared with applause. Traore stepped forward, embracing Fatou warmly. He knew this was the true measure of the program's success, inspiring the younger generation to cherish their land and future. Witnessing the moving scene, an international journalist scribbled in their notebook, "Today in Burkina Faso, I saw the future of an Africa that honors its history, celebrates its heroes, and builds bridges of dignity for all." Meanwhile, in the US, General Michael Langley watched the live broadcast. He sat before a large screen, his face full of admiration. In a live interview afterward, he was asked about Traore again. "This man is truly special," Langley admitted, surprising many. "He's proving that a true leader listens to their people and acts with humility." His remarks spread quickly, reinforcing the message that acts of kindness and genuine leadership can connect people worldwide. They also highlighted a shift in how global powers viewed African nations, from imposition to recognizing and respecting their inherent potential. After the emotional celebration, the story of Ibrahim Traoré and Burkina Faso didn't end. The Sovereign Future program continued to spread, becoming a profound movement for change. Though challenges remained, the nation was firmly on a new path. President Traoré stayed committed to his mission. He didn't rest on the laurels of praise. Instead, he spent more time visiting remote regions, listening directly to the people and solving problems alongside them. On a visit to a small fishing village by Lake Suru, he met a child named Mamadou, different from the schoolboy Mamadou, who had received a new uniform and books thanks to funds from the program's land reform projects. Mamadou, with sparkling eyes, shyly handed Traoré a scribbled drawing of a boat and a rice field. "Mr. President," he said, his voice trembling, "this is for you. I want to show you we're using what we're given to learn and build our future." Traoré smiled, deeply moved. He knew this was more than just a simple drawing. "You don't just owe us, Mamadou," he said, gently patting the boy's head. "You're proving that when we give people the right tools, they can conquer the world." That moment, along with countless others like it, reinforced his belief in the path he had chosen. Traoré's legacy was not merely infrastructure projects or economic growth figures. It was that he had planted a new belief in the people of Burkina Faso, a pride in their ability to be self-reliant. The concept of self-reliance and dignity became the guiding principle for the nation's development. Hashtags like #Respect for Africa and #Leadership with Dignity were no longer fleeting social media trends, but symbols of a new approach to international relations, where mutual respect and equal partnership took precedence. From the initial heated debates, many international experts now had to acknowledge that Burkina Faso's model could serve as a blueprint for sustainable development in other nations. Through Burkina Faso's story, Africa was no longer seen as a continent of despair in need of rescue, but as one of potential and innovation, a place capable of standing on its own and contributing to global progress. The story of Ibrahim Traoré and Burkina Faso's Sovereign Future Program, though unfolding on a distant continent, offers profound and practical lessons for life in the United States today. In a society often caught in the whirlwind of consumerism, reliance on external solutions, and sometimes a lack of faith in our own communities, Burkina Faso's model provides a fresh perspective. Consider how Fatou, from a struggling farmer, through empowerment and training in local farming techniques and woodworking, not only sustained her family but became a teacher of knowledge to other women. This clearly reflects the lesson of the power of inner strength and skill-based education. Instead of relying solely on aid programs or charitable funds, we can focus on equipping people with practical skills, enabling them to create value and improve their lives from their own potential. In the US, this could mean investing more heavily in vocational training programs, encouraging community-driven skill-building initiatives, or even embracing a do-it-yourself (DIY) mindset in individual households. General Langley's initially surprising speech and President Traoré's bold response demonstrated one thing: mutual respect is the foundation of any lasting relationship, whether between nations or within our own communities. Instead of imposing or criticizing, listening, understanding, and respecting each other's values and efforts opens up unexpected opportunities for cooperation and growth. If the story of Burkina Faso's journey of self-reliance and dignity has inspired you, subscribe to the channel to not miss out on more meaningful lessons. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in upcoming videos, where we'll continue exploring the power of belief and transformation.